I sponsor people. I do all the work that I need to do, and it's very separate from my work because my work I get paid for, it's a very different.
Welcome to Longterm. I'm Ty King, and this is the podcast where we're talking about recovery and learning from the experts. And, it's really been eye-opening for me over this, past just over a year that we've been doing episodes and learning from the experts and learning from people who have lived experience, but also learning from the clinicians and the providers and the programs that are available to people so that they can get recovery from a myriad of different things. We've covered everything from substance use, which has so many different facets, but also sexual addiction and mental health issues. We've covered a lot of different things. And I think as people, there's a Venn diagram where we all have something that we need to recover from. There's that suitcase that we need to unpack, that we need to deal with. It's so easy to look at someone else and say, oh, they got a lot of problems, or look at somebody else and say they've never had a problem, but you never know what anybody is dealing with. And so it's always, even more enlightening. And I think I get a little bit more knowledgeable every time we have one of these episodes. And so I'm glad to be sitting here finally today with with Dia Parsons after so much technical problems that we've had before we even hit record.
Thank you, Ty.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here and for allowing me to use up some of your time. I know we've sat here for 20 minutes trying to figure out some technical things. We made it through. Now we're here.
We made it. Yes.
So Dia, you're the CEO and a certified CADIC. Is that how you said it earlier?
It's a CADAC too. It's a counseling certification. And there's, when I realized this was becoming a career early on, I decided to go back to school, and I did that at UCLA, and I became a counselor. But it was just more for the education around something that I was really diving into, and that's kind of been, part of it. You got to educate yourself. You've got to, really know what you're doing and not be a cowboy, cowgirl, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting you say it was becoming a career. So this was something you started in and didn't have like a future projection of like, I'm going to do this forever.
No, this was an accident. Like, I worked in the film industry in the behind the scenes, and I had my own problem in it. This was 18 years ago, and I was in a treatment center, and that treatment center was going out of business. And so as it was, people were leaving because they weren't getting paid. And I just started helping for fun and for free, like taking them to meetings and cooking for them. And it felt great. I was like, this is amazing. And then someone found out that I was doing it for free and hired me for $8 an hour. I was like, felt like I was overpaid. I was like, this is amazing. I'm getting paid for this. And then, 2.5 years into it, and a series of life events really kind of pulled me in, kind of reaffirming that this was exactly where I needed to be. And it's just been like that my whole career. It's been life events. It's been, I'm a spiritual person now, and I believe in, I just kind of what pulls on my heart. And I have a lot of respect for this industry and this business because I've seen a lot, and I've done a lot of things. So, very much like my AA program, I have so much respect for that, and I have equal respect for this. We get to be in a position to help someone in their most vulnerable moments, and I do not lose sight of that.
That's amazing. And you skimmed right past the part where you said you were taking people to meetings and cooking for them.
Oh yeah, I was doing everything that needed to be done. There were still clients there, and they needed help, and so I just pitched in. I was still doing unemployment, and so I just felt like that's what to do. You step up and you fill in the blanks. I had already completed the program, and I had moved down the street, and so everything was just aligning. I'd moved down the street so I could go there and I could help these people. So those were some of the best times. In my early recovery is really understanding what it was like to help somebody for nothing.
Peer support specialists are big, in this area. A lot of the organizations and programs I've interviewed, because kind of what you did, where it's like you went through the program, but then you saw, I don't know, people I've talked to, I was like, why do you get into that? And it's because, they see a part of themselves in these people that need help. And they know that they were in that position once before too. So the easy thing to do is, I guess the easy, but like, they have a heart to do so, because it does take a very, very special type of person. You can't just come in dry, have no, association with anybody that's ever had any substance abuse, and then like have a passion for bringing people consistently, to meetings and cooking for them.
Well, I thought it was a liquid job. And, I thought it was like, you get sober and you work at Starbucks, like to get back on your feet. And it was just sort of like it wasn't a job because I wasn't getting paid, but I was just doing it because I could. But, I quickly realized that, one was my recovery and one was going to be a job. Whether it was $8 an hour, it didn't matter because these things needed to be separate. And then I needed to start learning boundaries and how to how to navigate myself and not, a lot of bad things can happen if you don't really, learn how to be a helper, and be responsible. A lot of people relapse because they're not taking care of themselves. There's a high level of burnout. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. And, as I said, the stars were aligned and everything was just happening. And all these things were happening that were good examples of what not to do. So I was like, ooh, that was bad. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the opposite of that. But yeah, so I started learning and early on, and it's just been such a great. I love what I do just as much as when I started 18 years ago. Yeah. And I don't think anyone should be working in treatment as young as I was in recovery. It just happened, and it worked out for me. But um, I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be.
18 years, that's a very long time, especially to be in that field. But I think what I've found and people I've talked to, where it's like, again, you kind of have to be a very particular type of person to have the passion for it to stick with something that long because you see I mean, I think recovery, just from what I've seen and what I've talked to people is like, it seems to be one of the only fields in the world where like you see the progress and you see the results of the work that you're doing.
I can tell when someone's having a shift. I can tell, and I can tell when it's lip service when they're just giving me this. So I yeah, it's there's nothing like it. And when I started working facilities, I'd say like if one person out of 10 gets it, job well done, because not everybody gets this. And when I started hearing the statistics and like AA meetings and how, literally it was a very, very small percentage of people that were actually going to make it motivated me more in both areas.
That's incredible. So how did you end up at Alegria?
So I had a job at most of my career was luxury treatment and also nonprofit. Interesting, very opposite sides of the spectrum. But so someone introduced us, and I had not heard of Joy, and part of my job was to hear. I would travel across the United States to learn about programs and understand what the resources were. Because if I'm referring somebody that we couldn't accept, that's a reflection of my name, and I want to make sure that I can say I've been to this place and I think it's a great fit for you. I know these people. It feels great. They mean business. So I heard about Joy, and but I hadn't heard about Joy. So someone introduced us, and I was very curious. And we had hired her and her services, and blew away the clinical team, the professionalism, how they navigated themselves. And so we kind of became friends. And she said, I cannot move forward without a partner. And I don't know why it came out of my mouth, but I said, we should talk. And so, but I loved my job. So I don't know, again, like here is something like, some woo woo working, so. But and the rest is history. We worked it out. She had just about her and two or three other people, and we've grown considerably. And both of our backgrounds, her as a coach and me working in a facility in all areas, with clinical teams, clinical meetings, all the things that I've experienced, our two backgrounds combined. It's really interesting what we put together for accountability and what we feel is doing it right. I think a lot of people do what we do, but and a lot of people do good work. I just think that we do it the way we think it's it works for us, yeah, and our clients.
There is definitely something different about it, and just from reading about Allegria and the work that you do and the way that you describe yourself, especially on your website and wherever you're listed online, it's I've talked to providers of in different types of services. Like I said, there's a mix of things. Like you said, there's the medical group, there's the recovery through faith group, there's the recovery through there's several different sections, and then there's the ones that are just stalwarts. They stone cold believe in this one thing, and then that's all you need. And then there's others that are like, well, you kind of need a mix of all these different things because recovery isn't a blanket thing that just applies to everyone. Um, but the way you describe yourself and the way that you're providing services with a combined thing, so you're combining access to medical services, but also there's sober coaching and therapy, which is huge, and mental health work.
Well, a great example, I mean, there's all ways that we start something with somebody, and, a huge part is working with families, but a great example of one type of client is when someone's leaving a treatment center, and this is where I saw things fail, and I am a product of this as well. You leave a treatment center, they give you a discharge plan, and they say, "Here you go," and you're like, "I got this. I totally got this," because doing treatment's easy. It's like, people tell you where to go, they tell you when to eat, when to go to therapy. It's easy, there's no alcohol anywhere, but when you leave those doors, that's when the hard work, it starts happening. Who is gonna hold you accountable to go to those meetings that you were going to and just so excited about? And so things slowly, slowly get put on the back burner, and they're like, and the next thing you know, it's this revolving door thing, and that's not everyone's story, but it's very common. And I think that the system isn't wired properly for that kind of for accountability, and so we come in and we help, hold them accountable. We work with them. It's not happening at them. It's a team effort with them. How do we help you succeed so you don't have to end up in treatment again? That's our goal, and so you don't have to work with us ever again. So that's kind of the nutshell. There's all different, we also tend to specialize with, in very acute psychiatric clients, and along with that goes substance abuse. But these days with marijuana, it's creating a lot of psychosis. It's activating a lot of mental health issues. So we're seeing a lot of that, and so the big test is, okay, we got to get you clean first. See if you're going to come out of this. Is this something that you genuinely have, and this has been activated, or can you be abstinent and get back to your right mind? So it's a very interesting process, but again, it's not one size fits all. Everyone is different. We look at their history, where they come from, and kind of put things together to help them and accommodate them. It's in the home. Sometimes we travel. It's very different. Sometimes Joy and I are flying somewhere to help some kid get hospitalized. So, it's I love it. It's different every day, and we have a lot of clients that well, more recently, we just graduated 2 clients, and that's what we love the most. Just feel like, "You don't need us anymore. You're doing great," you know?
You mentioned something, earlier that I haven't heard because we always hear about, the fentanyl problem that's going on, and like a lot of people aren't getting the chance to even get into recovery because, for a second time, or they get their hands on some sort of substance of choice, and it's always laced with some sort of fentanyl, and then they're passing away. But the thing you mentioned earlier about the marijuana and maybe unlocking something in your mind, I've talked to a few people where it's or clinicians that specialize in dual diagnosis, and where it's like, okay, well, these are, yeah, you may attribute that to be some sort of side effect of the substance you're using, but you also could have some sort of mental health issue that unlocked, like you just said. So I never would have thought the marijuana part would be part of that, though.
Well, and it's hard too because parents are like, "What? He's just smoking marijuana. What's wrong with it?" They can't. But it's not the same marijuana. There's a lot going on, science combined with, how they're growing it and all of that stuff. I remember the marijuana my dad smoked and grew. It was very different. There were seeds. It wasn't as green. We weren't, doing oils. I mean, we've really taken it many steps further as far as like what it used to be. It's stronger. I mean, kids are losing their mind, and I mean, yeah, I mean, we're seeing it every day. One of the first questions we ask when someone is actively psychotic, have they been smoking marijuana?
Really, that's one of the first questions you asked.
Yes.
And you're based in Los Angeles. I don't know if we mentioned that in the show
Yes.
earlier, but do you see anything that's more specific to LA? I guess when it comes to substances that are being used or common issues in seeking recovery versus anywhere else you've been in the country?
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, for me in my travels, I know that, in Asia, that's very specific what they have available. I know that the Philippines is very specific to methamphetamine. They don't have opiates. And of course, there's some things that they've incorporated since, but there's a common theme if you want to talk international. But I think out here, there's a lot of sticky wickets. Sort of kratom is one of them. You can buy that over the counter. Again, it can be highly addictive and produce two different effects depending on how you ingest it. There's a lot of things that I've never got to experience as a person in recovery. Things that are available these days that were not for me. But it's really just how you choose to. I mean, it's if you have an addictive personality and you start with these things, it's if you stop one thing and you're going to start kratom, I mean, a lot of younger people will find kratom because it doesn't show up in urinalysis. So, there's ways to get around things, but I know it's fentanyl. Fentanyl is a huge problem. I also think pharmaceuticals are a huge problem. We have people that, had just regular people that never had an addiction problem, and they fell on their back, and they're no longer have access to the medications that they were given because it was a large amount, and they're copping drugs on the street to satisfy, their cravings and their, urges, and it's just, how did this happen to me? So, um, it's really interesting, and therefore it's like we really have to meet people where they're at. And I don't believe one way is the only way. I know the way that works for me personally, but I've seen different things work for anyone, and we're willing to try anything. Okay, let's try it your way. And if that doesn't work, what else can we do? You know?
For you, I know you mentioned earlier that you went through the program as well, over 18 years ago now. Uh, what was it for you that was like, this is what I need to do to change, or that I need to change at all? Because I know that can be a really, really hard decision to come to. Was it anything that was just a life-altering experience, or was it just a decision that you made one day? Because
You
in
know?
in the rest of us were like, I guess my touchstone, before coming into any of this, I know listeners have heard this story a million times, but it's like, Home Improvement, when one of the kids had got their hands on some drugs, you know what I mean? And the whole family gathers around the living room so that we can have this intervention. And then they go to rehab for 30 days, and then that's it. And the problem's over.
No,
Not
no.
really.
I've been to many treatment centers, and for me it was a progressive disease, and it just got worse and worse every time. But I'm a
Mhm.
low bottom junkie is what it comes down to. I mean, that's my truth. I'm a needle user. As bad as it gets is how it got for me. And I think everyone was done with me finally, because I would anyone that had anything to do with me or wanted to help me, it was just another, it would just extend my use and whatnot, my manipulation and whatnot. So I think I was just done. I was tired. I didn't know what else to do. And I figured that I've been doing such a great job of screwing up my life year after year after year. And all of the things that every time I go out, all the more shame, things to be ashamed of, that we're just adding to this pile of shit. And I just thought, I'm doing such a great job of messing up my life. Why don't I just flip that and
Yeah.
do things differently and listen to some other people? Because my own thinking got me into the worst messes, and so I had to really take myself out of it and kind of surrender to it. So I was done. I was tired, and I didn't have, I don't know, it was, I don't know, call it divine intervention. I don't know why it was this time as opposed to, like, so many other times.
So was it a different feeling whenever you finally made that decision? Like, was it, and like, internally, did it feel any different at all than just a regular day of what you were getting up?
Yes, I was committed.
Yeah.
I was committed. I mean, I have a daughter. I mean, I had to put everything to the side and focus on my recovery, or everything was
Mm.
going to go away, or I would die. Yeah.
It's incredible. And like, uh, it's hard time like looking at you and saying and hearing the things that you're saying about yourself. It's like,
And I
I
clean up well.
very, very well. I would never have guessed that, like you were saying, using needles and being at the bottom of the barrel. Not the image that you have now
But it didn't
whatsoever.
start out that way, it didn't for
Yeah.
me. I wasn't, in high school and experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and thinking I want to grow up and be like a junkie, like the hardest core junkie that you can ever imagine being. And like,
That was a
or
goal.
join AA. I didn't like, what do I want to be when I grow up? I want to be an AA. I just, none of this was, I just didn't know that any of this would be in the cards for me. I'm lucky to be alive. And I have a lot of respect for my life today. So I don't know. I just, I maintain my recovery in order to help other people. Very separate. I help people in I sponsor people. I do all the work that I need to do,
Mm.
and it's very separate from my work, because my work I get paid for, and it's a very
Yeah.
different.
Wow. It's incredible. And like, I mean, you're very humble about it because, I mean, like you say, you're just lucky to be alive. But I mean, obviously, you've done a lot of amazing things with your life. You're saving other people's lives, for one. But also,
I'm
you built this,
helping them save their own lives. I'm not saving anyone,
you know what I mean?
honestly. It's true. Once they can figure out they're saving their own asses, I mean, that's
Yeah.
empowering. That's something that, there's purpose. That's the beginning of purpose. And so a lot of
Mm.
what we do is we're helping people find purpose. Most people come wrecked and they have nothing, like, especially there's a lot of kids that have been handed things their whole life. And so what do you do with a kid that's had everything their whole life and they know that they'll be taken care of? But how do you find purpose with that person? So it's really just like trial and
No.
error. How do we tap into this? But yeah, if the first step is like, realizing that, like, I'm doing something to save my ass. I'm saving myself. I'm saving my own ass. And I feel like that's purpose. That's the beginning of purpose.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting thing that you brought up earlier. Something I haven't heard or even thought about somehow is that if the person that needs recovery has a child, right, and that person's life obviously depends on you, but you can't even depend on yourself if you're in that position, and so having to make a decision to separate yourself and go through the necessary steps to attain recovery. I mean, that can't be easy whatsoever. I can't even put myself in those shoes.
None of this was easy. Yeah, life got really, as we say, lifey when I got sober.
Yeah.
I feel like I had it, I don't know, people started passing away and, I lost family members. I had to make some tough decisions and I walked through all of it, so, but I think that, it's true what they say, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And I got some pretty thick skin. So
So are you hopeful? I guess, one of the questions I always have about, recovery in the future of, in a perfect world, in utopia, we wouldn't need, you wouldn't have a job that you do right now, right? So, because we wouldn't have anybody that was addicted to substances, or need that sort of recovery. I mean, there's plenty of other things we can need recovery from, but that in itself, and I know I think it's been approached by so many different ways of, prevention, even like the DARE programs, laws that are put in place to try to scare people into not using drugs. But like when it comes down to it, nobody's really thinking about those things or consequences. It's just, I need to escape from whatever the thing is that's on my mind or feel better. You're chasing some sort of feel good. Are you hopeful that we're moving in a direction where we aren't going to have so many people that are addicted to substances?
I'm not. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I believe treatment is appropriate, but I feel like how treatment is blown up, it's become part of the problem. And
Hmm.
I love treatment. I think it has its purpose, but I think that because there's so many treatment centers and there's so much happening in the gray that it's kind of like a spin cycle kind of thing. And it's terrifying what's happening because whether it's street drugs or marijuana, what's happening with people ending up in hospitals losing their minds, and fentanyl, and then pharmaceutical drugs, it doesn't matter. It's there's nothing. I don't think that we have a good handle on it. I don't know that anybody does in any state or any country. I mean, you can threaten to kill people if they use drugs, but like, yes, that's scary, but are they going to stop? Probably not. It's a really powerful disease. I grew up in Los Angeles and in the Philippines, and I remember they used to stamp my passport, drugs are punishable by death. And but did
Yeah.
that stop me? Not at all.
You used to live in the
Um,
Philippines?
I have, yes, I destination divorce. I grew up in both
Okay.
places. Yeah. So, so yeah, I've experienced a lot in a lot of different places, but I guess the point is that no, I mean you have to have your own consequences, and everybody has different ones. Sometimes it's a spiritual bottom, sometimes it's rock bottom, sometimes.
Mhm.
It always surprises me. It's different for everyone, what that looks like. But I mean, helping facilitate that, there's a lot of work that goes into families. I mean, it's a tough one. I don't know that we have a handle on it, and I don't know that it's getting any better.
Yeah. I mean, especially when so many things, like you said, the kratom, which is like you're the second person that's mentioned that since
Hmm.
I've done this, but so it's not as common, I guess, down here in the area where I am,
Hmm.
or maybe it's not as common as addressed as a problem.
Yeah.
We're always hearing about, methamphetamines and opioids, and like, especially after the lawsuits, from the pharmaceutical companies, and then the states started receiving millions of dollars in compensation and then distributing that. Like, that's been the main focus is just the opioids. But there are so many things that are just over the counter. I mean, you've mentioned, three of them where it was, kratom, where you can just buy it over the counter at a gas station. There's, marijuana, which is, some states is completely legal. but also there's other ones where you need a card or whatever to get it. But I mean, which is fine. But if you have an existing mental health issue, like you said, it can unlock something, and then that's an issue. Same thing with alcohol. It's just so broadly available to everywhere, and even so accepted. As and what do you do after a hard day's work as an adult? Well, TV and everybody else will tell you, go get a drink, and you can get that anywhere you want.
Yeah.
It's not very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for having access to so many different things that can have so many different effects on you, it's really hard to, I don't know, like I can't imagine like a perfect like prevention program to be there, if that makes sense.
It's
Um,
it's a combination of both people need to meet each other. You can't really chase someone around helping them if they don't want the help. It's really
yeah,
hard. And then there's the problem with insurance coverage when people do want the help. Sometimes they're spit out too early because they're not covering as many days. I mean, I can go on and on about this, but
so-
it's shocking to them because they think they're safe for, at least 30 days maybe. But after 2 weeks, it's like, oh, it's not medically necessary that you stay anymore and you're not going to get covered, so you have to go. And what are they going to do? Because they're not done detoxing. They're left with anxiety and all the things that you haven't really been able to deal with. There's so much left over, that you were numbing for so long. And that's why it's really, if someone's ready to commit, it's really just like, you got to just commit, and just stick with it. And, it sounds so simple, but it's so hard to do.
Yes, for sure, and it's easy to fall into. I've talked to people who lived a really great life. They were living in the suburbs, had the really nice house. You know what I mean? Really great jobs and stuff. But then got injured, was put on some sort of pain medication, and got addicted to the pain medication, and then it all goes downhill there. But put on such a good face that nobody else knew around them. What was going on internally. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it's exclusive, and that's why I was curious, you being a therapist now for people who are in recovery. People hear mental health issues and, I think it's more widely accepted that we all just sort of go to therapy. Like that's become more normalized. I wouldn't say it's completely normalized yet, but there is sort of a taboo, element to it when you tell somebody, "Hey, I'm in therapy." Well, maybe not where you are, but like it definitely is down here in the Bible Belt. If you've got an issue and you're going to go talk to somebody about it, you better suck it up and just deal with it. You know what I mean? And don't tell anybody. Um, Pray to Jesus about it. That's
I've been through that too. I mean,
yeah.
Jesus fixes everything, and I have nothing against that. But like, it's you can pray it away, or you can actually take action. I may be a combination. Yeah.
So, yeah, and it probably takes a combination for anybody and just a certain percentage of all these different things for anybody to go through recovery. But I was curious, for the people that they hear mental health problems in somebody that's addicted to some sort of substance and they think, oh, I bet they've got some serious issues. Are there the issues that you're dealing with someone that's going through substance use? Are they so different from anybody else that's not addicted to some substance? Or are they unique problems that you're dealing with?
You mean as opposed to mental health, mental
Yes.
illness? Personally, it's interesting that you asked that. I worked in a facility that had a mental health license, two homes, and one had a substance abuse primary. And it was really interesting, like, someone who had had a dual diagnosis, what they were willing to identify. I'm not an alcoholic. I have depression and anxiety. God forbid you call me an alcoholic or a drug addict, like tooth and nail, and the opposite, going the other direction. It was really interesting. But I don't see much of a difference, and I think that sometimes it's harder when someone has the mental health diagnosis, maybe they're bipolar or whatnot, because the family has a little bit more empathy. Like if you're doing an intervention, on somebody, the mental health ones tend to take longer because it's more skillful. It's a process. If you have someone with substance abuse, it's more of like you're going to die if you don't get help, like right now. Let's go. But the family has Johnny can't help it. He's bipolar. But there's still the same level of manipulation, to get what you want, "I don't wanna take my meds, I wanna stay sick, I don't like the way the meds, make me feel," or they're self-medicating with substances. More than likely, they're self-medicating with substances, so just like what comes first, are you is bipolar or schizophrenic self-medicating with like marijuana, alcohol, or are you, just a straight up alcoholic or a drug addict, and do you have trauma and or depression and anxiety? Those are usually the combination for that. So I think it's harder with people that have the dual diagnosis or a mental health problem, because there's a level of empathy, and we believe that we can. I think everyone should be challenged, and so does joy. Like, so we don't. We know that they can do better. You tell me that they can't because they have this thing. They can do something. They can do better. So let's challenge them and see if they can do it. I think that's part of what makes our connection special is that we really believe that people can, instead of like, oh, they can't because of dot dot dot. You are a diagnosis. You're not. You actually can do things, and that's the joy of what I get to do, or what we get to do, is kind of we get, it gets messy sometimes, and it's really hard getting in with the families and the client, and really just, trying to promote change and let them know that we believe in them and we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. We're going to keep challenging you. We believe that you can. So, yeah, that's kind of the magic of it. But, I mean, there's so many people, right? There's so many people. No, nor do I want to. Nor do I want to, but I just feel very grateful for what we get to do, and we're a small grain of sand in a much larger problem, as you brought up earlier, and it breaks my heart. I mean, nothing breaks my heart more is, when I worked in nonprofit, we were getting guys from the prison system, and I loved it. They'd or the cops would leave drunk guys on the doorstep. I'd come in at 6, and like we'd have to wait for them to come around and kind of get them through the system. But I just I love what we get to do, and it makes me very sad when someone. I think our system is not um it's not great because, you have to have financial resources to get quality help, and that kind of breaks my heart. You know, you can go to a lot of public services. We get a lot of calls. We do calls like for fun and for free, not for fun. I mean, it's very sad, but we just talk to people and, let them know we're here for you, what we can do. But, there's a lot of very sad situations that we aren't able to help. We do what we can, but can't help everybody. So I have a lot of colleagues. I have inner circles in every state. If someone needs help, I can reach out to them. Oh, you're in the state. I can call, the people I know out there, and I'll find something, so what's the low cost treatment, or what's, whatever the fit is, there's a fit for everyone, so anyway, whatever I can do to help somebody in the state they are, the country they are, I have resources all over. So, I feel very blessed that, if there's a chance that I can help someone and create that right fit for somebody where it might change their life, this might be the time, you know, that's where it's at.
Um, the question I always ask everybody at the end of the show, is okay with all of your experience, fitting with the name of the podcast, right? So the whole purpose of this is finding long-term solutions. So for Dia, who was coming out of your substance use, you made the decision, I need to do something about this. I need to make a serious step forward, or else the trajectory of my life is going to be completely thrown off into something else I don't want to be. Um, what is a long-term solution for people today that are in that very same situation you were in that long
Mm.
ago?
I think the long-term solution is, ironically, just taking it slow and one day at a time. That's the long-term solution. If you get too ahead of yourself, I think that staying committed, not picking up that day, like if you can, it's like if you can get through one day and then you got another day, before you know it, you've got 30 days, and then you've got 2 months, and next thing you know, you have a year. And what I've found is that every day, every hour that I'm staying sober, it's a gift. So it becomes more and more of a gift. Not to say that, like, I mean, I am just, it could be me that goes out, for whatever reason. I'm not immune to this thing, but I do stay close and in the center of my recovery process. But I think that as time goes, and what I've built for myself in my life, it's very precious. And I think it's, the community I have, the friends I have, everything that I have in my life, I owe to staying committed to recovery. So I don't want to, I wouldn't, it's a gift. I have a lot of respect for it. Yeah.
It's a good answer.
Thanks.
And real authentic, it's coming from you, and, like, obviously, you know how to do this and how to handle it.
It's not easy. It's, and that's the hard thing. It's like an emotion comes up or something happens in life. A lot of people say, if my parents die, I will not stay sober.
Yeah, I will spiral.
Yeah. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, uh, it just doesn't make it better because that makes it about us. And you know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like, I don't know, most of my life is just being of service to other people and helping people because I don't know, staying in the center. I'm a for AA. I used to have shame around it. I feel like, oh, it wasn't cool. Now I make it cool. I make it cool for myself.
That's awesome. Well, Dia, thank you so much for taking the time again to
Thank
share
you,
all your
Ty.
knowledge and talk about your story. If somebody wants to find out more about Alegria, where do they go for that?
Allegria.com. Allegriacollaborative.com. Sorry.
That's it.
Yeah.
Uh, thank you again. And thank you for listening to this episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can find the podcast
You can say it. Oddcast. Oddcast. I like that better. Oddcast.
from Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you pick up your podcast from, and vice versa. If you're listening to this as an audio version, you can find the video version, and you can see Dia herself by going to YouTube and looking up Longterm, a podcast in recovery. Really important to help the show grow, but more importantly than that is to help the message get out there to the people that need to hear it. We like the subscribes, we like the comments and all of that, but more than anything, I want to ask you if you know somebody that can really benefit from hearing what Dia had to say here. You're like, I know somebody like that that's in that position and they need to hear exactly what she's saying right now. Share this episode with them. Just let them listen to it. I mean, the worst thing is that the worst thing they can do is not listen to it. The best thing is they can listen to it and actually receive something, and it might change their life. It may give them the courage to do what Dia did so long ago and turn it all completely around and even become a clinician and then helping other people in that situation. So you never know. And so that's the most important thing is being a megaphone for that message that there is hope, there is recovery, and there are options for people who are dealing with any kind of substance use issues. And then there's so many different options that you can go through to handle this. But thank you again for listening to this episode, and we will catch you in the next one.